Hi there, and welcome to the second season of the Humans and AI podcast. In this podcast, we dive into the real-life stories of the top leaders and entrepreneurs within the artificial intelligence, high-performance computing and data center space. These people truly are at the top of their game. We have honest and authentic conversations with all our guests. We'll chat about their career journeys, the highs and the lows, and the lessons they've learned from the mistakes they've made, and the victories they've celebrated along the way. It's all about sharing their experiences and knowledge. We talk about the company they're currently in and how they see the future of the space. So if you're looking for practical advice from people who've walked the same path, or just a little inspiration, you're in the right place. We're going to be releasing new episodes every Thursday, so make sure you stay tuned. Hi Bam, how you doing? Good to meet you.
Hey Nick, thanks for asking me to join. Appreciate it.
Absolutely great. It's something obviously we've been talking about a little while now. So really, before we properly get started and into it, are you able to just do a little sort of helicopter view introduction of yourself, who you are, and your current role and where you're working, if that's all right?
Sure. I'm Bamian Gobets, but most people just call me Bam. Originally, actually from San Jose, California. Grew up in the tech industry. I was at NetApp as a startup company, which was kind of fun in Silicon Valley. With NetApp, they sent me over to Europe to help start the pre-sales team in Europe in 1999. Then a couple of years there, went to the first storage cloud called Databasement. We sold that company to Proact eventually for their managed cloud services portfolio. Went on to started in a very technical role and then started moving into more commercial and VP sales with Scale.io, which we sold to EMC back then. Now Dell, there's still a product there. Was with Hedvig doing international sales with Avinash Lakshman. That company eventually sold to Commvault, and then ended up at at Elastifile with the scale-out file system, SDS. I was doing international sales there, leading that, and that company eventually sold to Google, which is now the distributed scale-out file system inside of Google. Last couple roles, I was with Adi Galvan at SpeedDB in Israel. This was an upgrade to RocksDB, which is a kind of core storage engine component in a lot of databases. That company was successfully sold to Redis. And lastly, one of my clients from a long time ago and a good friend, Arnold Juffer, founded and started Nebul, which had a different name a few years ago. And we were talking, having lunch, and we had this idea, and he invited me to help do the go to market, the business development, and sales and marketing and all these things. So we started Nebul about 14 months ago, and here we are today.
Feels like a lot longer than that.
Yeah,
we've been talking a long time now. Feels just as long. Yeah. So I mean, that's obviously great. Thanks for the high level overview there. So. Obviously very rare. You don't see so many salespeople these days that have a technical background. So obviously you started out as a Unix engineer, didn't you? And then as pre-sales and then into the channel.
I think it's key. It's core to if you're going to be in technical sales and especially startups. Those first conversations are really important, and having a technical background gives you a huge advantage in understanding what the client actually wants, right? Which in my view is what sales is really all about. It's nothing more than that. Helping the customer, the client, to get what they need, and so you can get to the heart of that much quicker.
Yeah, I say particularly with solution selling, isn't it? If you're selling just a bit of product, then not so much, I guess. But if you're selling a solution, I think it gives you a huge advantage, and one that not so many people have. So it's great that you've got it. Now, obviously, you've been with where you are now, Nebul, and very much within the neo cloud sort of space. 14 months, I think you were saying. I thought it was longer, so it feels certainly longer as well. You guys you've actually even pivoted your strategy as well. So you're able to just give a bit of an overview of what you guys are actually about, what the solutions are that you're trying to solve.
Sure. We started life, Arnold Juffer, the founder and CEO, has a long history, 25 years of building, hosting companies and really focusing in on the high performance computing aspect. And high performance computing, as many know, is not the same as commodity computing. So it's a different GPU, it's a different network, it's a different data storage platform. And so taking that knowledge and some of his best teammates from the previous companies started Nebul, and originally we were kind of building from scratch, building a relationship with NVIDIA and some of the data storage providers. And we really started at the bottom layer with what we would call an AI cloud, I guess, or an HPC cloud. And that's really focusing in on the parallel file systems at the bottom, the networking in the middle, so high performance InfiniBand networks or Ethernet networks, and then the computing platforms, which is today typically NVIDIA and also with some Intel. But the key difference being that the evolution of HPC has gone from parallelizing operations across multiple nodes, and the NVIDIA GPU allows us to parallelize these operations instead of sequentially in parallel on a single GPU, and then across multiple GPUs, and then across multiple nodes. So you get a completely parallelized infrastructure. So that was our base. And on top of that, we built the AI factory with NVIDIA, which is 1,500 plus open source packages, pre-trained models, vision, conversational AI avatars, PyTorch, TensorFlow, all kinds of tools, TensorRT, Triton server, to basically build from scratch an AI application kind of through a factory assembly line all the way to inference, or whatever the outcome may be. And then lately, as you mentioned, the pivot, we've discovered, in the US, you have lots of companies building AI and they're buying lots of infrastructure. But in Europe, we're more adopting AI, right? So Europe doesn't have a huge AI startup community, although it's there, but it's mostly adopting AI. And what we've discovered over the last year is that there are definitely companies building AI from scratch, large enterprises, startups, AI-focused companies, but a majority want to consume AI. And so we've moved up the value chain now to where we're, with our AI team that we brought on board, building end user services, for example, like an alternative to ChatGPT, but then that fits within the European regulations, sovereignty, GDPR, data encryption, NIST protection, ISO certification. So in other words, that the data is isolated in Europe under all the regulations, and that companies can safely deploy this with their employees to utilize what ChatGPT does, but then in a completely sovereign and compliant manner. So and that's what we mean by that's what I mean by pivoting, or what you mentioned is just adding these additional layers to allow end users to consume as opposed to build AI, which we also still do, of course.
That's it. So providing a lot more value, very much looking for the solution, understanding their challenges, rather than trying to buy up all the GPUs. And having this ginormous sort of hardware sort of estate.
Not against that, right? But we have to service the market and their actual demands, and of course that's discerning the hype from the reality in Europe on the GPUs versus the infrastructure versus the services is something we've been learning.
Fantastic. So you've got sort of the AI factory, you've got the infrastructure layer, as you mentioned, and then you've got your equivalent of your own sort of ChatGPT. And then you've got this AI consultancy piece as well.
Exactly.
Wrapped in. So you really got a full sort of stack solution.
Yeah, the AI team is key to that. When we're interacting with companies that want to consume or adopt AI, they very often don't have a high performance computing team. They don't have a whole team of AI engineers or DevOps people necessarily. So we figured out in our actual interactions with our customers that having a layer on top of the infrastructure of, excited AI engineers who like to build AI applications allows us to work directly with their technical teams, fill in the gaps. And really the goal is to just move along the pipeline a lot quicker to release the product. So without that, you end up being a kind of GPU cloud, and we don't want to be stuck there. We want to really engage with the clients and make sure that we can actually get to the end result much quicker and fill those gaps, and therefore adding a lot of value, to the process for our customers.
And where do you see the sort of, the greatest challenges in terms of getting in front of those customers and really identifying those sort of needs?
The greatest challenges of getting in front of them really is probably just that, right? We're a young company. We don't have a huge team, so we're utilizing all the technology, all the social channels, everything we can do, events to basically get awareness. That's the hardest part in the beginning. Is just nobody knows about you, so we're doing our very best to create lots of content, valuable content, reach out to our contacts and find ways to help people through, as they do SEO and they're searching on Google and different platforms that they come across us and hopefully are triggered to learn more. I think that's been the biggest challenge, just getting in front of, figuring out who's actually, wants to move ahead with AI and engaging with them directly, right? That's a challenge for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. And in terms of obviously the way in which you're doing it, so working with partners and obviously going direct, because you've got some really good case studies already, haven't you, with sort of direct customers?
Indeed. In fact,
Netherlands,
I think in a week or two, we're going to, announce them formally, but I can say for now that we're working on what I would consider the most significant AI project in the Netherlands, at least. And that's a project with a partner, which again, we'll be talking about in a few weeks, which is building a multimodal cancer treatment solution. This essentially allows is a multimodal AI solution that would look at scans of cancer, would interact and hear, let's say, doctor-patient conversations. Could potentially analyze medications, and then based on a body of data, right, advise the doctor on the best treatment. So the solution is really building a training right now, a solution that will help the doctors treat and enhance the treatment of cancer patients. And that's training on, many tens going to many hundreds of GPUs. And I say that's significant because there's a whole conversation out there about how useful is AI. And, if you only see that it's allowing you to create cartoon faces on Facebook or Meta and creating, fun movies and stuff, okay, maybe you're skeptical. But in our view, we're seeing, cancer patients actually get improved treatment. That's pretty dramatic. We're also working, as another example, with Team Epoch, which is the kind of the AI team at the Technical University of Delft. They compete in global competitions usually for good. So, in fact, the last project was mapping out the sea kelp around the world from satellite photos to help restore the sea kelp in the ocean to help the wildlife. They actually, out of 600 other universities, with our support, we gave them a DGX to run these models on. They actually won the competition pretty easily. So they beat 600 other universities there. And then the next project, which they're working on now, is really interesting. It's like you take a blood sample. Let's say you're in the middle of you're far away from a city. You don't have the means to get to a doctor or a hospital. It could be in Africa, Asia, even in Europe or the US. A blood sample where you can take a photo of with your iPhone or your mobile phone, and this model will be able to identify the type of malaria and the potential treatments for that without having to visit a doctor or spend money. And so they're doing very well in that competition, and we're happy to work especially on these kind of projects because it's better than some of the other things, right? But we're working on a lot of commercial projects as well. Those are just my favorite.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty cool. I think obviously being a European sovereign cloud organization as well, there's definitely some advantages and obviously reasons why therefore you'd be quite attractive to whether it be universities, whether it be medical organizations. It's something that we've talked about previously offline as well. So, and that's one of your big things you're focusing, isn't it, on the AI sovereignty piece?
Absolutely. So there's something called the U.S. Cloud Act, which is a kind of related to the U.S. Patriot Act, and it essentially gives any U.S. agency the ability to take data from any U.S. owned and operated public cloud, in this example, from anywhere around the world. So what that means is that even in Europe, if you're working on the U.S. hyperscaler, the public clouds, if your data, even if your data is local in Europe, which is a checkbox, right? It's not legally GDPR compliant, and it also means that you don't have full control of your data, which brings into question whether you even own your data if it's sitting on a U.S. public cloud, because it can be taken, it can be transported to the U.S. and analyzed, and a copy that you may not even know about that. So we have a lot of traction from especially the healthcare industry, patient records, that has to remain local, and it has to be sitting on a cloud or a service which is European operated and owned, as well as local data. It could be military data, government data. It could be any type of GDPR data that contains PII, personally identifiable information, phone numbers, emails. So a good half of European data probably shouldn't be on public cloud, but because the European governments haven't been enforcing it, they're still giving some leeway because there's not a lot of options. The best example of this, Nick, was about 5-6 weeks ago, the Dutch government actually fined Uber 300 million euros because they transported data through a hyperscaler into the US for processing. And that is, of course, an example of where Europe is starting to really come down on especially American companies, but also European companies for not respecting the GDPR sovereignty regulations. And so that's our special focus, is we're really focused on the European data. It could be international companies or European companies that have regulated data. So our real focus is how do we enable companies to build AI, to deploy AI successfully with regulated data, assuming to eliminate most of the risks that not everybody understands, but we do, and we help communicate those risks and make sure that companies understand what they're doing.
I think that's the point, isn't it? Communication's key. I mean, I've known about European sovereignty for some time. We all talk about it. I had no idea about this Cloud Act in the US.
Yeah.
I have to admit, it hadn't come across my sort of desk. So when you told me about it, and I think it was actually on one of your webinars that you guys host, that was a complete takeaway for me. And I'm sure the same for a lot of people as well, because they just assume they know what there is to know about European sovereignty.
Most people think that if you have your data somewhere in Europe, that you're somehow compliant. And actually, technically, you're not, and it goes way beyond that. The other factor is that I think everybody got, of course, a little shaken up, surprised by the U.S. elections. And of course, you see the new U.S. government acting in ways that maybe not everybody understands, and so that risk may be heightened, right? I think Europe felt a little bit of closeness to some degree to the U.S., and now that's at question. And so you have to be extra careful with the new regulations coming and what that means for European data and European companies. So it's good basically to be independent and work with European companies to eliminate those risks. And also, in general, we'd like to promote, European business initiatives around AI. We don't want to always be trailing the U.S. So we're fully encouraging that, and we've invested many tens of millions in infrastructure to give AI a chance to grow in Europe. We're really happy about that.
It really is. It's so important. It really is. And then, obviously, looking at your business now, you've pivoted your strategy a little bit. You've got a big plans now over the next 12 months and beyond. I mean, what is the overall sort of strategy that you can share now? Because like you say, you've pivoted already. What's the focus for the next 12 months?
The first 12 months is kind of trying to find your market fit. And we, like many, got caught up and are still, somewhat caught up in the hype of AI. Buying all the infrastructure, having that available. Still, you have to connect with the customer and understand what they really want to deploy, and that takes time. So in the next 12 months, we've kind of found our product market fit, both in some of the services we've developed. We've got really good response from that in the last few weeks and months. And it's time to kind of, now that we found the product market fit, it's time to kind of scale out not only the technical teams in the background, but also the commercial teams. So we're looking at expanding our business development team, both representatives and managers, identifying certain verticals and horizontals and certain pockets of the market where we think that, in certain cases, companies that are building AI want infrastructure and AI factory. In other cases, let's call it the enterprise space, although that could be smaller companies as well, are looking to consume. And so we've kind of found that fit now, and we're now looking at expanding our staff to be able to go address those needs and speak with customers and fill those needs in with finally the higher level services and the more mature products that we've built with the right interfaces and the right approach. I think that's where we're at. So we're in the expansion phase. We've done all the learnings, product market fit, and kind of, expanding the business side of things now to really, connect with customers.
And I think, that's the thing, that expansion, that growth, bringing in all that talent across the business, whether it be in the technical side, whether it be in the commercial organization, that comes with its own sort of risks and challenges as well.
Yep.
Particularly when you've been quite a close-knit team for some period of time. And obviously, before you worked here, you've been C-level executive VP before, you've grown and scaled teams quite a lot.
Yep.
How are you going to ensure that you actually get that, productive, working in the right way, keeping your identity as it is already? Because it does change when you go from, I don't know what you are roughly now, but say 25 people to 50, it's a complete transformation.
Yeah, well, in my experience, the key is really hiring the right people. So, working with the right recruiters, working with the right, uh, you know, uh, organizations and building the right networks to hire the right people. So, a year in, we have a good idea of what's the right profile, the right persona. What are we going after? So I think, maintaining integrity of your principles. We operate with certain principles of, it's okay to fail. Just make sure you learn, that you move on. Try experiment in everything until you find a good fit. Right? Always be honest with your colleagues. These kind of basic principles we abide by, and really hunting down and trying to find the very best people who are excited for the mission and see it as an adventure. That's, to me, the key for the startup is really that, right? Not over hiring, and then being very careful who you do hire.
Absolutely, it's absolutely massive. And in terms of obviously that blend of talent that you're bringing in, so are you bringing in the sort of talent for tomorrow? So you're going down getting graduates and early in career, or is it real sort of senior experts that have been around the block a few times, that have worked for other sort of startups as well, I understand those challenges?
Look, it's a discussion that we have weekly, and we've kind of found a balance that on one hand we want to, AI, artificial intelligence in itself is a major at technical universities, and so we've hired a few people out of university who are excited. They've got all that energy. We're looking at a few senior technical roles, like a senior data scientist at doctor level, right? That can kind of help. So lots of say younger, excited, well-trained people, as well as some more senior engineers. And what you get is a really interesting interaction where, the information transfers there. You got the energy in the business, on the business, and that's more on the technical side, right? So it's a good combination, a mix of these type of people all working together. And on the business side, we tend to think about slightly more senior people. I think in the AI space, machine learning, high performance computing, I think, infrastructure skills are pretty critical. So when we look at commercial people, business people, it's like, have they had some experience with, data storage, networking, compute? Do they understand what public cloud is? Do they understand the drivers behind infrastructure and how that's evolved? And, nobody really knows AI very well. That's something that's popped up in the last 2 years. And I know for myself, I didn't feel comfortable. It took me about 6 months of studying. So we can't expect people to be experts there. But on the more positive side, because of ChatGPT and other AI tools, everybody's got hands-on experience now. And so you can also work your way back to how does that work and how does that sit on the infrastructure. So, slightly more, I would say, senior commercial people, and then a nice mix on the technical side to create the right vibe for putting the right people in front of our prospects and customers to build trust.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the lifeblood of the business, right? So, hence why I do what I do. And in terms of, obviously, over the last sort of 14 months, we've talked about some of the changes in direction that you've made, to make sure that you're actually going up the stack, offering more value. What are some of the things that you sort of learned? Because obviously there's other neo clouds out there. There's other AI sort of tech startups. It's a competitive market. We all live by some of our decisions and our mistakes, and we continue to learn. And again, that was something you talked about there, about it's okay to fail, it's okay to learn. What are some of the things that you guys have actually done where you've actually gone, that didn't work, let's move forward and press ahead, but slightly differently?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think on one hand, we first had to figure out what was wrong. There was something wrong with AI adoption in public cloud. And so after interviewing lots of contacts and prospects and even customers, we figured out that in public cloud, they're overcharging for raw GPUs by 2 or 3x per month. All the variable costs. They tend to use, it's a little bit technical, but they tend to use GPU cards that go into commodity servers, which don't scale very well, and they're not as fast as the more specialized ones that we use. So we figured out that, hey, it's 2 or 3 times as expensive in public cloud. It's really not very fast, which is really key for AI development, for training and inference. And also they're really not legally GDPR compliant or truly sovereign. After we figured that out, then you saw the kind of the rise of the neoclouds. Now they address the performance, they address the cost, but most of the neoclouds don't address the sovereignty, the enterprise SLAs. Most of the neoclouds have evolved from Bitcoin mining or crypto mining companies that decided like, hey, we have all this extra infrastructure. Why don't we start reselling it for, put it in a cloud format and give it to AI engineers? So they don't come from a space of enterprise SLAs and high value data processing and these kind of things, which is where we come from. So we're kind of trying to find the balance there. And really, the biggest lesson we learned was that in Europe, ordering GPUs from NVIDIA, for example, and from other components, we really figured out that if we don't have it on the floor, it's very hard to move a prospect to utilize your cloud, right? They don't want to wait 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. So the big light bulb moment for us was we lost a really big deal with a really big European company. Really annoyed us, of course. And the reason we lost is because we didn't have enough equipment on the floor at that moment. And as soon as you create that gap, they have a lot of other options. And what they really want is to move quickly. So it was at that time last year that we started working with B-Stacking, private equity firm, and we funded the company to the tune of around 20 million, and we're able to really purchase a lot of equipment, get it on the floor. So we now have all the NVIDIA platforms, all the GPUs available, and we keep like a 20% buffer, so that when we start talking to a prospect and they want to move quickly, it's not a question of 3 months, 4 months to order what they want. We have it running. They jump on our infrastructure, and then we can back order to build the next layer of buffer. So, there's like a 3-month gap there. So the big lesson we learned was you need to be highly capitalized to be successful in this space. And it's to our advantage because most European companies are not very proactive there. They tend to wait for the customer and then invest. And then that doesn't work in this space if you want to get ahead.
That's a really good advice. And I think I speak to a lot of clients that, quite frankly, are waiting for the sale, then they go and purchase. And like you say, it just doesn't work. The lead times, and just heard some horror stories. But you've got to be brave though, haven't you? It's a big capital expense up front.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a large technical university in the Netherlands through an RFP that was last year, and they're still waiting, right? So it's like, they may wait 6 to 12 months for something. And in the meanwhile, we have a cloud available. Of course, you're working through tenders in Europe. That's also very tricky. We tend to avoid those. But that's, you could end up waiting a long time. There's lots of delays, production delays, technical issues. And, NVIDIA sold out, right? It's just the truth. So you have to build a really tight relationship with them and hope to jump the queue to get what you need, right? And we figured out how to do that. We're really, really good partners with them and understand their order flows.
And so because obviously you've got the DGXs, so it means that your customers can also work really closely with NVIDIA as well,
right,
with that different service offering. How do you also offer more value add services with those end clients then? Because obviously you've got most people have just got H100s when I speak to them, and they might have a couple of thousand, but you've really gone across a full estate. So you've got the L4s, you've got the DGXs, you've got H100s, 200s. So therefore you can offer, whether it be for inferencing, whether it could be for training, digital twins, the lot. How do you actually go to customers and have that conversation? Because I think you've got a broader service offering than
I think we do.
Most people realize.
Yeah, so interesting about our stories, we started top down, right? We started we're right now the only official NVIDIA DGX cloud provider. We started off with the DGXs, and the advantage of the DGX is not only does it come automatically configured with all of the NVIDIA software, which is a very large set of software for development, but you get a direct relationship with NVIDIA, and we get direct engineering support from NVIDIA in our cloud, which is a huge advantage being an official DGX cloud provider. We kind of then realized that for flexibility in some cases, the HGX, which is a similar hardware build, similar specs, but from Supermicro or Dell or HP. We work with Supermicro on that. That is something that we can build as a more flexible multi-tenant cloud. So we have for DGX more the enterprise style customers. They get the direct relationship with NVIDIA team. We have the HGX for customers that are happy with more of a relationship with us and our support. And we then figured out that we also need the OVX with the L40S, which is really well designed for high-end graphics, Omniverse and Unreal Engine and rendering and these kind of things. and also the most efficient inference platform, which is on the L4 in terms of energy cost. So in our pipeline, as customers are training, they're starting on the H100, or we have, by the way, Nick, we just last week received the first H200 cluster in Europe, and it's already running in our data center. So there may be one or two others coming soon, but we were found out we're actually the first fully functional production-ready H200 cluster. So model training, which we're doing at some scale, is happening on the H100s and the H200s. We have lots of customers doing advertising, digital graphics, rendering, these kind of things on the L40Ss with the OVX, and on the RTX we have a whole cluster of L4s, which we think inference is getting more and more efficient. So eventually inference, which runs 24 hours a day, which is our long-term goal with customers to provide long-term sustainable value very efficiently. The L4s and also in the end, maybe AMD and Intel can also run inference, but for now we're sticking with NVIDIA until that's proven. We still see NVIDIA as having a pretty big moat in terms of technology, and also their CUDA platform, which is a software layer, really helps with that. So having the full array of all the different GPUs, and during the pipeline we put the data on different GPUs along that stage, means we can offer a very efficient, flexible model which is aligned with the actual needs of the stage of the AI development.
And I think the other thing being there is, obviously, speaking of all these different GPUs, and obviously with NVIDIA constantly rolling out and looking at the next evolution of their GPUs, obviously from a power and energy point of view, they're going to start consuming more. And obviously when I speak to some of the neocloud providers stateside, everything for them is about energy, it's about power, it's about sort of mitigating that risk over the next few years. I don't hear it so much actually over in Europe. What are you doing to sort of future-proof your business for that then as well?
That's a great question. I think, first of all, I think about 90% of the data centers in Europe can support 5 to 10 kilowatts. And I mean mostly at private companies, data centers, all the enterprise companies. So if 80 or 90% can support 5 or 10 kilowatts, maybe 15, but for a full rack of NVIDIA, we need about 50, 60, 70 kilowatts, right? For the traditional, let's say for the H100s and the H200s. That means there's a limited amount of data centers which can actually support a supercluster and tens or hundreds of GPUs. Further, they also have to be very close together, right? If you're traveling the speed of light, you can move about 30 centimeters in a nanosecond. So if you ever wondered why a motherboard, why the memory, the CPU has to be very close, it's because, of course, it creates latency. So we can't also spread out these things across like a half mile or something. They have to be very dense. And so this is a huge bottleneck. What our strategy is again, because we've taken investment and we're investing in advance in this, is we're finding the data centers in Europe where they do have the power requirements that we need. We're partnered with Atlas Edge and a few other providers where they're giving us the power allocation we need. And of course, we stick to making sure that energy is all generated from green sources. In Europe, that's also very important. It's part of the requirement when companies are buying that you're using clean energy. So we're addressing it like that. So far we're okay, right? But we see that there will be a bottleneck. The last thing I can say about that is that NVIDIA is helping out here to a very large degree, because, for example, the B200 that's coming out, even though it's 20 times faster than the H100 as a system, it only consumes roughly the same amount of power. So what you see in NVIDIA's focus, which is the right focus, is, look, we have a lot of computing power. Let's take a break. We're still going to accelerate the petaflops at a linear rate, but let's focus on how do we reduce the energy consumption. So stuff like on-chip liquid cooling and just efficiency they're building in means that for the same energy, I can process 10 or 20 times more, and that trend will continue. So NVIDIA's working on their side. Of course, we're spinning up nuclear power plants all around the world to address the new needs and green energy, and I think the technology is going to help solve that problem.
And in terms of that portfolio of services that you offer, and also flipping back to the fact that not a lot of people are aware of you. Obviously, more are now over the last 14 months.
So. Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Absolutely. But in terms of the ideal sort of customer, so we talked about some enterprises could get it. Can obviously come and talk to you. But are you looking at smaller startups? Because obviously there's a lot of startups that initially go with public cloud, great credits, and then all of a sudden,
hey, they get a couple 100,000 of free
later.
credits for the first year. So yeah, we're talking to all of them, and those credits run out. So at that point, we're interesting. Yeah, we're targeting for our outreach and our networking. On one hand, like I said, AI startups are interesting. But mostly I would say that across all horizontals and all verticals, there's pockets of AI adoption. That's a wave that's starting in Europe in 2025. I think it started already, but it's going to mature in 2025 towards the mid half. And what we're looking at is those pockets of adoption. Really, I would say that's where we're really focused. And then overlapping with regulated data. So again, GDPR, PII, user data, any data that falls under European regulation. That's where we're focusing, and the rest we're kind of letting go to the GPU clouds. The commodity. There's a kind of race to the bottom happening in the neo clouds where they're even selling GPUs under the market price with lots of investment. We're not going to go down that path, right? So we're building a sustainable business model. We've walked away from a lot of deals which were loss-making deals. We're not interested in those. We want to build sustainable business with sustainable relationships with companies that have regulated data and have genuine concerns about having the right partner to make sure that they're fully compliant and without compromising on the innovation and the speed.
Fantastic. And in terms of these organizations that might come and talk to you now, obviously they might come and talk to you, that there might be another neo cloud provider that they would look at. Why should they really go with you? Because you've actually talked about so many sort of strong points and arguments as to why they should join. So whether it be from a data and a regulatory perspective, the European sovereignty, what's different? Is it the strong sort of relentless support that you guys offer your customers when onboarding? Because obviously that's not always the case with some other businesses, to be fair.
Yeah, at a sub level, I would say it's the regulatory concerns, right? It's the pricing and the scaling and the availability. It's the support that you mentioned, but if I had to sum it up, at the top of that pyramid is just trust. The GPU space right now, the AI space it's kind of flashed into existence. Everybody's racing after doing deals, and there's a lot of funny business happening in the market, which is all moving very quickly. And we have a history. We're a mature team with a 25-year history, and what we've learned over those years, in which we've instilled in our staff and in our business principles, is creating trust, and that's the highest form of value that we can add to our business model. So our customers learn to trust us, right? We may not be the cheapest, but we are the best. What we say, we may give you disappointing news about the availability or what we can do and how we fix that, but we're being honest. So we found that trust is the key here in a hype cycle. This is what enterprises need to lock on. The executives there don't want to take risk, right? They're very risk averse, yet they want to move into a new space. And that's our sweet spot, if you want to call it that. So I'd say trust, reliability, honesty, and being realistic about these type of projects and how to accomplish them.
Fantastic. Well, it's been really, really good getting to know you and learn more about the business. I always like to sort of end up the meeting with one sort of last question here. And I suppose a lot of the people that will be listening to this, a lot of the people that you probably talk to are AI tech startups, CEOs, COOs that actually by trade are engineers in some cases, haven't necessarily built a business before, but are just super bright and super specialist in what they do. What sort of advice would you give somebody in that really early sort of days that's starting out now? Because they're popping up all the time.
Oh, that's a great question. The advice I would give after working with Nebul for about 14 months is stop thinking about AI, stop experimenting with AI. Just pick something that's low hanging that you want to accomplish and just start doing it. Pick a user group, a group in your company that can kind of test things and give you feedback. But you don't need a very long test cycle here. Everything's moving so quickly that by the time you test something, it's already changed. So what you want to do is just go ahead and deploy something, and then keep iterating. And that iteration is going to go on for years because now when it works, the other department wants to use it, and then we got this data set. So the final vision here is that every department has data. AI will start to live on top of all that data and intercommunicate. And that's something that will take 5 years once a company starts to even get close to completing that. So just start, pick something that's doable, that you feel is accomplishable, and then it'll kind of spread by itself, and pick the right partners, right? So just get going, basically. Stop thinking, stop planning, stop having a bunch of meetings, stop getting project managers. Just start building something, and companies like us can help with that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it. It's been great.
Sure.
So much change in the last 12 months. I'm going to have to get you on again in a year.
Yeah, let's do it again and see what the updates are, right? That'll be fun.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. I hope you found it a valuable conversation. Bam gave us a great insight into his journey from being an engineer to moving into sales and then on to leadership. If you're looking for more practical advice or inspiration from those who've been there and done it, stick with us. We're releasing new episodes every week, so don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow the Sobi on LinkedIn. You won't want to miss a thing. This episode was brought to you by Sobi. I'm the founder and managing director, and it's our mission to connect the best talent with the most exciting scale-ups in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the data center space. Once again, thank you very much. See you next time.